So here's the deal. Most dads today feel stuck, overwhelmed, like a shadow of the man they once were in their primes. And that's not okay. We're taking back the dad flag and creating a movement of men who will be strong. Strong leaders for their family, strong physically for their health, strong mentally for their careers, and strong internally for a balanced life. We are Dad Strong, and this podcast is for you.
All right, Vernon, thank you so much for being on the Dad Strong podcast. It has been a minute since I have done one, and I can think of no greater person to start off the new series of Dad Strong podcasts than Mr. Vernon Brown. And thank you so much for being who you are. At the beginning of this week, you actually hit a spark in me and helped me find a different gear that I didn't know that I had. So having you on as a guest right now is a true honor, and I want to have you speak to who you are, why you do what you do as a happiness coach. And how is that different than just any kind of I don't want to say run of the mill, but there's a lot of business coaches out there. There's a lot.
Sure.
But you're not that, right? That's a red ocean, if you will. You are in a blue ocean. And I kind of feel like you've made your own ocean. So talk to us. Who is Vernon Brown and why do you do what you do?
David, I got to tell you, and people who are listening, I want to say this. We've known each other for a total of 144 minutes. And when I tell you that me and my man David connected, it was just like that. Not only is David a dad, just like I am, but this guy's got a phenomenal soul. Phenomenal. And yeah, I can answer really quickly. Why I do what I do is for what you're talking about. It's you. People forget how capable, how qualified, how amazing that they are. And I've seen this in my business career over and over and over again. If you're trying to be someone who you would aspire to be, you're going to fail. You will always fail being who you want to be. You will always succeed being who you are. Who you are is all you need. And if there's anything I can say that differentiates me from anybody in this world is that it's not my happy, it's your happy. That's a big thing. It's sitting down and getting people to recognize that you might not have the exact business acumen. You might not have every psychological hack, right? But your key is you. And I know that sounds kind of like non-tangible. So I'm going to bring it to a more tangible side. When people really get to step into who they are, that's when they start making more money.
Mm-hmm.
You can call it permission. You can call it guidance, perspective, whatever word you want to use to kind of water it down. But all it boils down to me is this. You get to be you and make a whole lot of money. Is that a horrible existence? Of course not.
No, it's freeing.
So let me ask you this. What was it like for you? We sat down, we never talked. You didn't even expect that. And that's what you said a second ago when we first got started. What was it like for you? Because I feel as much as I could speak to it, I think it's best for you to speak of it.
Yeah, that is going to be exciting to put into words. When we first spoke, I'll just tell you what was going on under the surface in me, and you probably saw it in a moment because you do this a lot. There's a lot of hunger, a lot of tension. There was anxiety. There was frustration.
Mm-hmm.
And when you just said a few words, it's almost like you looked me in the eye through a camera lens, but looked into my soul and just said, you need to stop holding back. And in that moment, it was like, there was a lot of other voices that came into alignment of like, I've been trying to tell you this for a long time. Stop holding back. And it was it was permission in a lot of ways. And I think as men, I don't want to overgeneralize here, but as a man, I have lived in a society, I've lived, been in different jobs. I've been in different scenarios where it's like, you are constantly asked to apologize for being strong, for being a leader, for being bold, for taking risks. Find me a little boy who doesn't want to take a risk, right? At some point in society that gets beat out of us, or we fail too much. We're not taught that failure. Like you said it to me, when we first met within like 5 minutes, David, failure is a part of your journey. It's what we're all designed for. I'm like, what? There's permission to launch, but there's also permission to fail. And that type of freedom, when you spoke that to me, again, it wasn't anything that I hadn't really heard before, but in terms of you believed it when you said, I'll just say that, right? We can all say a lot of words, and if we don't believe them, they fall flat on the floor. But when you have, I guess you can call it unction, when you have a testimony behind it, when you have belief behind what you're saying, that's when the impact comes. And that's what hit me like a bullet to the chest. Like, whoa, okay. You know what? Me holding back is actually holding a lot of men back. Me
Right.
holding back is holding a lot of families back. And if I take it back to being a dad, if I'm going to hold back, it's going to hold my kids back. If I stay in the dead end job, or I stay in the career that I know I'm not made for, I'm holding them back because I'm showing them, you know what, son, security is better than destiny. And that is not a message that I want to preach to my family. I do not want to choose security over my calling. Sometimes, most of the time when we're called out into something bigger, you don't know what's going to happen. And
Nope.
that's the adventure part of it. I mean, when are you going to step out into your adventure is kind of what has been echoing in my soul for the last 4 months. And yeah, it's not perfect. Yeah, it's not easy. Yes, I've fallen on my face multiple times over the last 4
Mhm.
months. But when you get somebody like yourself, Vernon, who comes alongside and says, "Hey, brother, you can do this. Don't hold yourself back. Go for it. Hit the pedal to the metal. Like, don't downshift right now. Like, you need to find another gear and push harder." Right. That's all of that is what was going on inside of me when we spoke for those few minutes on Monday. And since then, there's just a different type of momentum. I don't want to just say like, I have more energy, I'm more excited. It's like, no. There's just a different level of activation when I'm putting my hand to things, when I have my eyes on things, when I'm looking at opportunities. It's just different. So hopefully that kind of answers what you were asking. Is that something that you see in other men when you're talking with them and coaching them? I know you talk with a lot of guys who are at a different spot in their career than I am right now. But is that pretty similar across the board?
It's different for everyone, but to some degree, there's a lot of overlap. But what you just said, it's when I talk with people, it's a little different experientially, but what comes out of it is the same.
Mm-hmm.
You're a different person. This person's been here the whole time. And in your case, I'm not going to put your information out there, but do you mind if I be really bold here?
Yeah, go for it.
In regards to men, you can't be a better man by yourself. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot. And we box ourselves in and we silo ourselves in. And I understand that. But that tension, that hunger, that anxiety you felt, that's the same thing that makes you successful.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we interpret oftentimes as like these signals, like, oh my gosh, something's wrong, something's wrong. No, sir. That's the system firing up to get ready. You can see it clear as day with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, a big thing, is that men forget. We know the adage, iron sharpens iron. But what are you doing to make that more a verb than a phrase?
Mm.
And that's what a lot of men forget about. I speak to men, I speak to women. I speak to men the same way that men have spoken to me. The men that I speak to are pretty harsh. They say it in a very non-charismatic way. And that's just their way. And I get that. My way is this: go get it. And this isn't just rah, 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 rah.
Right.
And you even said that like what I said was, you didn't use this word, but it was genuine because I genuinely, sincerely mean it.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that, when it comes to people doing better and sharing their experiences about it, the language that people use is one thing. What people create is everything. Why I do it. Because it gives people a whole new lease on life. What you just said, even about being a father. I'm not going to tell my son, go out there, take risk, be bold, like all this other BS that you hear a lot of parents talking about. What are
Mm-hmm.
you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very call you out type of way. You can't tell someone to do something that you haven't done. That's why these
Mm-hmm.
speakers, that's why these persons are great affluence or great inspiration. It's cool. It's kind of like a shower. Baths and showers are great. You got to take one every day. But is that going to change your life? No.
Mm-hmm.
That's up to you. And I'm not trying to say that is me. But what my job is to remind you, like, hey, what are you doing? I see what you're capable of. You don't see it, but I can see it. And
Yeah.
it's important for people to recognize, if you're going to tell your children, if you're going to look your wife, you look at your husband in the eye and say, hey, go out there and do this, you had better have those pants on first.
Yep.
Because you got to be congruent. That's a big thing. And, I feel like for men, more specifically dads, it's we got to get real comfortable with the fact that it's not comfortable to talk about our emotions. It's not comfortable to talk about things we made mistakes on, but oftentimes even some of the things you shared, they weren't mistakes. This is how you collect data. How do you
Yeah.
find out what doesn't work? You got to find out what doesn't work. How do you find out what does work? You got to find out what does work, you know?
Yep.
It's data. That's all you've been in, data collection mode. Only thing I had to do, only thing we got to do together was, I said, David, and I shook you like a cup of a soda, right? And it might seem like it's crazy, crazy, crazy. What came out was everything that's been in you the whole time. It's been right there. Just need a little shaking up, and it's quick.
Yep. And I think that's such a good message for dads. You know, a lot of you dads, if I can speak to you in this moment, you have dreams, you have aspirations, you have things you probably wrote in notebooks that are sitting, you know, full of dust on a shelf somewhere or in a box in the garage. I want to encourage you over the next couple of days to pull those out and be brave enough to look through them and let that fire be rekindled. Because honestly, in the type of age that we're in, there is nothing impossible. Nothing is impossible for you. It is so easy to network. It is so easy to connect with people. But again, like Vernon just said, you got to be bold enough to do it. You got to be bold enough to be vulnerable, to say, you know what? I screwed up. I think I've been in a job for 20 years that I hate. And I think my wife disrespects me because of it. I think my kids look at me like, man, he's settled. Like, is that the legacy you want to live? Or will you be brave enough to say, man, maybe I need to pivot. It can all happen in a moment. I'm not talking about massive financial success. I'm talking about rekindled purpose. Like if you lived with purpose on a daily basis, I mean, it wouldn't matter whether you drove a Maserati or a Honda Civic. It just wouldn't. You'd be driving on purpose, right? You're doing things on purpose. You know, it's totally different when you have that unction and that drive behind you, that belief and that authenticity. Now you walk into a room, you command the room, not because you mean to, just because you have purpose. How many men do you see in the break room at work walking around with purpose? Most of them are just like, when's my next break? You know, when's my next cup of coffee? When's my next excuse to get out of my chair to go mill around? Right? I mean, that's how most people live. And it's a horrible existence, but we have a choice, as Vernon just displayed. We have a choice to either be vulnerable and let iron sharpen iron and be around other men. And I admit it's difficult to find those communities. Like there's a whole bunch of communities on Facebook right now where you get in there and they're like, dad's about fitness and dad's about this and that. And all you see in there is negative speak, is condemnation, is just, I hate this. My wife did this. How do I do that? And it's all self-centered living. It has nothing to do with other people. It has nothing to do with who am I impacting. It's all about me. Right. And that stuff is a dead end. So as you're rekindling your vision, don't think about it in terms of how is this going to make me better or, you know, make me something. But I don't know, what would be a good way to say that, Vernon? Like, how can this impact other people? Like when I become who I'm made to be, how does this help the world? Or maybe just help the world around me? Or maybe you just start in your home is where I've started. You know, I've been around church and been around ministry for a long time. And I think one of the greatest revelations I've ever had in church is my ministry is my children and my wife, my marriage first, and then my kids. If I can't have that in order, if I can't be a light and an example to them where they see who I am day in, day out, when the rubber meets the road, I will never have an effective ministry with other people ever, because I'm not being responsible for what's in front of me. So as Vernon, how would you encourage men, you know, who are looking at, you know, they're 15 years, 20 years down the road in a career and they're like, man, I totally settled. What would be a next really good step for them to maybe start rekindling that flame or just even processing that?
You know, that question, you see me sitting here pondering, this is a phenomenal question. You know, I think at first thing we have to start with an understanding. Oftentimes ambition is confused, is misconstrued, is misaligned with vision. And I think many men, dads specifically, are ambitious. They want that Ferrari. They want the Maserati. They want this thing, but they don't have the vision. And vision isn't something that necessarily is you're born with it inherently. You have to seek it out. And so oftentimes when men kind of table things, they put things to the side, is because they don't realize that you have to hunt for it in many cases, because sometimes it will evade you. Sometimes you have to grow to be that person to see that high up. And it's one of those things that a man's not going to find it by himself. He's not. That's why being a servitude to one another, surrounding yourself with a positive fellowship, surrounding yourself with people who want better. We all have relationships. We get that. But are we coming together to talk about what's wrong, or are we coming together to talk about what we're going to do? Because once you
Yep.
get past all that stuff, because as you stated, you got to make sure you're living congruently, then you start developing a bigger vision. Because why? You feel better, you're sleeping better. This is where your home is where you want to feel the most powerful. Because this is where you take your armor off and you get to be you. So you want to make sure that's good and that's aligned. When you're taking care of those things, and that ambition and vision are now lined into each other and together, because you have that ambition that's born in you. But that vision, that takes development, that takes confidence, it takes practice. So I think, with that understanding there, now the next step for me is this: are you willing to not to be the expert? Are you willing not to be, the man? Everybody wants to be his or her, king and queen in their kingdom. But I can tell you this, all the smart kings, all the smart, princesses and queens out there, they visit other kingdoms. They talk with people. They have your board of advisors. You've got to make sure that you are in an environment that is conducive to success. Stop isolating yourself. I get that it's natural. You're going to come up with all these lame excuses. I've heard them all. 10 years, I've heard them all from so many different men and women over the years. Don't want to hear it, because isolation is part of the enemy.
Yep. Yep. I think of Henry Ford. And I haven't researched too much into him, but I heard a story about him where he was brought into court about something and accused of, this guy doesn't even know how to, a transfer case works or how a transmission works. And he said, I may not know that, but I can pick up my phone and press one button, and the man who built it will come right in this room. Right. And I see that. I've always taken that as that's what true leadership is. Somebody who can empower others. I feel like Elon Musk does a really good job of this as well. Like, he didn't know anything about rockets. Then he went and studied them, and he hired the best rocket experts to come in and build him a rocket. Right. Can you do that? Are you willing to do that as a man, to say, here's my vision, man, I'm not the smartest one in this area, but I'm going to go find some other guys and get surrounded by them and have them help me with the vision. Right. I'm right in that spot with Dad Strong at the moment. I'm realizing that I'm the bottleneck. Right. And that's a tough reality that, it's empowering, but it's tough at the same time. Like, oh, wait, you realize the center of all 5 problems, the one common denominator of the problems in your life is you. And you're like, oh, wait a minute. There's some personal responsibility here. Ooh, that's not easy. That's not what Oprah talks about.
That's what's great, though.
It is.
Most people try to plan a wedding on the beach. How much control do you have? Why would you leave your fate, your memory to luck? So when I hear that this is all on me, I get excited. That's like saying I get to go to a buffet and I get to decide how much I don't want, what I don't want, and what I do want. When those first 10, 20 years of our lives, or 15, 20, 25 years of our lives, you got college, school, and all those things, we're kind of thrust into society. Those next 50, 60, 75 years are up to you. Now you get to decide that I don't like this part of me. I had a horrible temper. I had to put that back. I don't need that temper. Oh, I had a negative disposition. I don't need that. Oh, but what I do need is a more collaborative spirit. Because to your point about Henry Ford, too many times men, we think that we're supposed to do it all and know it all. Wrong. And it's a lot of things out there in the media that kind of get us there, and there's many different reasons. But I'm here to tell you, I've seen men completely flip their lives around in less than a week. And I mean, I'm not just saying, they feel better and they're doing better, they're thinking clearer. But even if I pressed you right now, David, if I pushed you right now in the moment, is there a chance? No. If I pushed you right now in a moment, I promise you I could create a lot of money for you. I promise you. You have it. The only thing that you're doing is you're not acting on it. I can promise you that. And I'm saying that, kind of speaking to the point about the bottleneck, we're all our own bottleneck. For me, it's what level of growth will I need to be that I can unscrew the cap?
Yeah.
You can't unscrew a cap without energy. You get your energy up, all of a sudden there is no cap. You're not the bottleneck anymore. Now you're just like this giant cylinder that's limitless. You can go as far as you want. It's up to you.
Yep. And then there's also those who see, okay, there's something in that bottle. I need to uncap it. Right. And that's to your point about being in community with others, people who be okay to be around people who are beyond you. And we can talk a lot about above and beneath and, peer level and all this stuff, but I truly believe, like, if you don't surround yourself with other mentors, people who've gone before you, who are at a greater place, who find people who have what you want and do what they do, is what a mentor told me at one time, Danny Johnson. Find people who have what you want and do what they do. And I would add on to that, surround yourself with them. Whether
Yeah.
it's, you've never met them before, or, it's a YouTube video from 25 years ago, surround yourself with that and feed yourself with it. What are you feeding on? I think is what it comes down to. Like, are you feeding on just passively what comes to you through the media? I promise you the media has an agenda. I'm not going to get all conspiracy theory on you, but there is always an agenda behind a message being spoken to you. Do you
Correct.
know if that agenda is for your benefit, or for CNN's benefit, or for MSNBC or Fox News's benefit? They all have a purpose behind why they're putting content out there. And a lot of times it's for your attention. And why are men so distracted in this society? Because it limits them. It makes them powerless. When they're completely distracted and looking at all these other things, it stops them from moving forward with purpose. Now, why do we feel as men a calling to go to the woods and the mountains sometimes? I know it's in every man, there's a call of the wild in there, right? To get alone. Some people will be like, well, I'm going to get into stoicism. Fine. You can do all that stuff. That's fine. But there's something core in you that says, I need to get alone and I need to hear, where am I going? Get all the distractions out of the way. And sometimes, like, I've been to some camps where it's like, it is a mandatory 4-hour time of silence that you go out with a notebook and you just think and write. And oh my goodness, the stuff that comes with just 4 hours. How much time do we have in a day? Like, if we just turned off our phones, we turned off the media, we turned off podcasts, like everything, just turn it off. And all of a sudden get alone with yourself, be comfortable getting alone in silence. I promise you'll be unleashed in a totally different way, different level of confidence, different level of purpose. Most of us are just passively taking the messages from everybody else. And that's one way to live. And you can go along in the current with everybody else and get everybody else's results. Go for it. If that's what you want, to be loaded with a pile of debt and, die and leave an inheritance of nothing to your kids, go for it. That's what most people do, right?
I agree. It's what you just said about that time to think. I tell every entrepreneur, you need to have at least 2 hours of thinking time a week. Even to my left, I have a whiteboard, and I walk around here, no music, and I walk and I pace back and forth downstairs. And whatever thought comes through my head, that's what I write. I might embellish, but I just give myself that time to think. It's as much as men, as much as people try to evade a lot of things with those distractions, at some point you hear the other self, is what I call it, the true self. And that's what causes a lot of men's contempt, a lot of men's frustrations, anxieties, stress, because they know they're not being who they know they can be. We're not designed to for some people, it's going to be okay to be more quiet. I'm a huge believer when I see my people, and David, I consider you one of my people. I could see it. I'm like, there's something in this guy, and he doesn't see it himself. When I see the voice, and I know you hear it, it's like, for me, it's just as simple as, what can we do? And that's why you have to be still sometimes to hear it, to see it. Or otherwise, you're going to be watching TV, CNN, MSNBC, whatever you watch, Fox News, however you view this world, and whatever works best for you, watching other people live their lives. It's kind of like this thing. Whenever I take my son to the beach, my son is always fascinated about this. And we have beautiful beaches here. And my son will go a little bit above waist level. And what's a trip is, before we get to waist level, you see a lot of people in the shallows, up to the ankle, got their toes in the water. And it's such a parallel of life. And then you'll go maybe another foot in, and then may go up to about your knee, a little bit higher. And you'll start noticing, as you go deeper in the water, it starts thinning out. And to the point where you get about waist height, chest height, and me and my son are like laughing. He's on his floaty. And my dad's like, why are we out here by ourselves? And I just told him, most people don't recognize opportunity. They just see a risk. The water's clear. What are you seeing? And it's not what they see with their eyes, it's what they see with their minds. I'm not content with being a spectator in life. I'm not content with listening to see how other people live their lives. And it was just so cool when I do that. And I think about that when I'm with my son. And it's like, what a gift to be able to say that, wow, it's not that, you judge people, but you recognize it really is a lot of people who want to do things, but majority won't. That bothers me.
Yep. I want you to talk to us a little bit about the power of what we speak. The first part is, you got to see it, right? You got to be able to have vision. You got to know that there's deeper water. So if you don't see it, you obviously won't go towards it. That's just common nature, right? But how many men have their words, like there's a truth that you create the world around you with the words that you use. With words, you either create or destroy worlds. So talk to men about the language they choose and how it affects the world around them.
Language is my number one weapon. It's my number one tool. It's my number one asset. It is my chief asset. Language is one of the most powerful things that the human being has in their arsenal. Not your fist, it is your words. Words can create life, create a whole new life together, and words can also condemn and hurt. And I'm not, again, speaking all like romanticized, but I'm just saying that there's a lot of power with words, and it's what you're saying to yourself. If there's one thing that I can pick up on with dialogue, and you can listen to any person who really pays attention, language lets me know how you see the world. And the way you see the world is accurate, because if you see it that way, I can't tell you any different. So language lets me know that if you're seeing things as more risky than more opportunistic, your language tells me. So I think the big thing with language is, to pay attention to it, why it's important, because it's shaping how you see things. I used to think the world was a dark and scary place. Everyone was out to hurt me. And a lot of times people are like, well, that's trauma. That's PTSD. No, you don't know what I've been through. So don't do that. That's why I don't do diagnostic language. But if you grow up in an environment where it's not safe, you're not going to have safe language. If you grow up in an unsuccessful environment, guess what? You might not have successful language. But as you can even watch like Shark Tank, listen to how the sharks talk. Some of them can be kind of harsh. Some of that's entertainment purposes. But really listen to how they see some of the worst things that happen. They speak about it in such a high grandiose thing, and it's amazing to me. But your language lets you know what you can or cannot do. To your point with if you think you can, you think you can't, you're right. Language is powerful. And I think a big thing about language that I must say is sometimes the language that you hear in your head or that you live your life by is not your voice. It's not even your language. You picked that up early on because you thought you needed it to live a safe life. And I call these interjects. Excuse me, my chair. But language is everything to me. If you look at, it's even how, you and I, when we talked, trials and tribulations eat to glorious success. But most person's language stays at the trials and tribulations, and it never grows to success. That's why I even said with you're in data collection mode. You figured out what didn't work. When you look at it that way, it's like, oh, because you know now what works or what path that you don't want to go down. That's a positive.
I think of my son, he's a baseball player. He's 10, and there would be games. I've coached him for his whole baseball career so far. And this is the first year that I've sent him off to a club team to play and to get coaching at a higher level, because I realized I don't have anything else to give you other than perspective in terms of skill. And you need experts at this point as a pitcher and as a hitter. But there were games where in the car ride over, I can tell how his game was going to go, because it was the words coming out of his mouth, right? I'm not going to hit the ball today. These kids throw fast. I'm like, you are setting yourself up to fail. And I said those same words, Vernon. If you think you can't, you can't. You're right. If you think you can, you will. And you're right. What do you believe? And I remember some guy helped Isaac, my son, with just his hand position as he was batting. And the first pitch that he swung at, he hit it and it hit the wall, and it was just a bomb. And I was like, oh my gosh. But it took that other guy saying, this is what I see. Let me just one adjustment. All the other mechanics were phenomenal, but just the one adjustment. And from that point on, it was, I'm ready to do this. Dad, I want to take this to the next level. I mean, that was literally a week and a half before the tryout for this club team. Something was off, and he had self-doubt, all those things that came along with it. He just like, I can't do it. I'm not a good hitter. I'm not a good baseball player. But that one tweak, that one adjustment, all of a sudden his language changed because he saw that he could do it. I am capable of this. And then he went out, smoked the tryout, and made the top team in the area. And I was like, I mean, that was a turnaround in 1 week, literally 1 week. He was ready to quit baseball, and now he's playing for one of the most elite teams in the area. And I'm like, that's amazing. Just one tweak. And I feel like, to bring it back to kind of what you do and what you practice, not what you do, but what you practice as a happiness coach, you find that one thing and you're able to tweak it and adjust it. And this isn't, yes, go find Vernon, go hire him to do what he does for you. But I also want to encourage you as dads to find other dads
Absolutely.
who aren't just settled in status quo, and Friday night is just about getting a case of beer and drowning our week and, you know, drowning our sorrows in it. Like, that's not it. You're driving towards something. You're looking forward to Monday. You're changing your environment. Like, find other guys who will challenge you and make you feel so darn uncomfortable that you have to change for the better, or you have to run away from them.
Yeah.
Like, that is so dangerous as a man. That's so dangerous for our society if we do that as men, as dads, and we show that example to our kids. That's what Dad Strong's all about.
Absolutely.
Heritage. What example are you leaving for your kids?
But oftentimes, and you really spoke to something I connect with, many things we talked about, and I know we are probably going to get to. When I see the majority of men are flocking towards the men who look always excited and they're never grouchy, and I get that, right? The optics wise, I get that. I've always been the person, if I see that person that's grouchy, sad, frustrated, lying there, and you would think, oh gosh, you're living in a horrible life. You don't know what that man just fell on the ground for. Maybe they gave their everything to be better.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always surrounded myself by the men who might not have the pretty rosy picture and optic wise, but it's about the guys who are trying every day to be better. I want to hang out with the guy who's saying today was horrible. I gave everything. I got the best I could out of, hey, guess what, man, Vernon, we're going to get up tomorrow and I'm going to do this again. That right there is the guy that I'm going to get my blood, sweat, and tears with too, because that's a person that's locked into what they want. That's a man who knows what he's going after. And I think it's so important for people to identify, the motivating factors within you that you want. Are they living the life that you want? Are they trying? I am a firm believer of so many people don't even try. They do not.
Yep.
They say that they try. They go out and they do their best. But it's just like when I'm looking at my son. I was coaching his flag football season last year, and the dad was like, "Oh, my son's great. Oh, my son's great," and he did the best that he could. And I'm sitting there watching his son, and I'm like, he didn't even try yet. And I walked up to his son, and I'm like, "You did a really good job." And he's like, "Yeah, I did." And I'm just like, "What else do you have left in you? What you got?" And it was just something as simple as that. I was like, "I know you can get to that ball first." He scored. He's never scored before. Set his whole life up, in my opinion. But why I say that it's important to identify these things, because your kids only going to listen to you but so much. Because at some point, David, you're boosting your family up, and they're like, at some point they start saying, "Oh, that's just you.
Yep.
You're just saying that you're my dad." When you have identified a lot of key characteristics that you know about you, or maybe some things you want, and you can see that in another person, that person becomes your representative. That's like they're kind of their parent to some degree. They're surrogate to some degree. And then when they hear that from someone else, think about what it did. Like, look at what happened with your son. We forget that and undervalue that power significantly.
Yep.
And so it's important to build your tribe as you continue to be a better man, be a better dad. Build your tribe with people. Sure, come work, hire me. Sure, that's one way. That's not the only way. There's many ways, but it definitely involves stepping outside of yourself to be a better dad, to be a better man, to be a better human being.
Yep. And I want to touch on something as well that you're saying here. There is so much power. I think one of the most powerful things in the universe is the power of agreement. When you come into agreement with your spouse, when you come into agreement with other men who are saying, "I'm on this journey with you," that's why you need to be surrounded by a tribe and a community. I'm not just talking about a Facebook group. I'm talking about guys you can get on the phone with, guys you can get in front of and talk to and say, "I'm bare and vulnerable. I screwed up this week. What do you guys see? What can I do? Or here's my plan. What do you guys think of this?" That's probably better. If you're not surrounded by that, you can't be in agreement. If you're just by yourself, the man who walks alone, right? But when you walk with two or three, there's that companion, that agreement, and like, we're going this way. And when you start to get weak, the companion goes, "No, we're not stopping. We're going to keep going. You can do it." And your companion, if you're married right now as a dad, that spousal agreement is everything. That's why men, a lot of times when they get divorced, it's like a piece of themselves literally falls off, because they were in agreement with somebody and then it's gone. And now they're like, "Man, my whole world shattered." That's why broken homes are destroying America and destroying this earth, right? Because these kids have these pillars. This is the foundation of my home. And all of a sudden that thing comes under attack and it's destroyed. And they're like, "Okay, what's even real anymore? What can I stand on anymore?" I just want to encourage dads, like, find agreement, Be in agreement with your spouse. Find the littlest thing to start with. You said, I do on the altar, right? You made a covenant on the altar when you got married. All right. And if you haven't gotten married yet and you're living with your, whomever it is, get married, get into covenant, get into agreement. This whole just living with people and like that does not set your sons and daughters up for success. I promise you.
Correct.
You have to be able to commit and to step into it and to be into an agreement, because it is so stinking powerful if you want to go a lot further than you're at.
Do you mind if I throw something out there that I don't think it's gonna be antithetical, but maybe a different perspective?
Yeah, go for it.
I love the thought of companionship from a relationship. From my perspective, it's important to know who you are, and you cannot count on her to tell you who you are.
No.
And the only reason why I'm kind of teasing this out is I'll see men and, work with different men or different, persons going through in different capacities, going through a divorce. And in some way, shape, or form, there was some unspoken request that they were supposed to help find who you are. And, I've always challenged that because they can assist, they can guide to some degree, they can be there, but that's up to you. That's your job.
Yep.
From my perspective. And I say that because there's some things in you that, some people might call them demons, some people might call them things to work on. But a lot of those places, I wouldn't say you have to go there alone, but you need to make sure you're there with someone that you trust and can accept. And that honestly, to be really blunt, that might not be your partner, because not everybody is with someone that they're equally yoked with. And that's, just the reality of it. I would love to say that everyone's with their partner, their life partner, and this is who that person is, but that doesn't mean that's going to be the person that can help you be a better you.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm just careful because I never want people to get stuck if it doesn't look exactly the way that we say, because again, I've worked with a lot of people over different circumstances. The two most dangerous places a man or woman can be in any place in life is in their head or in their bed, your partner. And not everyone is in a really great relationship with a partner that's very supportive, because maybe they're not available to handle things themselves because they got things going on.
Yep. Maybe they're afraid to bring something up because they know what's going to happen, right? They're afraid to talk about a subject because they know where it's going to lead to.
Well, they don't know where it's going to lead. And that's the worst thing. Like, oh man, what's going to happen here? You know what I mean? It's like, to be continued.
But I think it comes down to what you're saying is it's personal responsibility.
Correct.
Have you taken personal responsibility for your own growth? It's not, and like I'm a testament to this, it's not just going to happen to you. You cannot sit back and just hope. It's this microwave mentality we have in our society. It's just going to happen. It's going to happen instantly. It's going to be quick. It's going to be easy. If I'm supposed to change, I'm going to change. If God wanted me to be wealthy, I'd be wealthy. No, that's not actually true. You might have all of the resources at your fingertips, but if you don't pick them up and use them, then it will not happen for you. If you have all the athletic talent in the world, I've coached a lot of kids. I coached wrestling as a high school coach. I saw a lot of talented kids, but if they did not give effort, it would not come together. There is a point where you face a kid who has talent, he has endurance, and he has drive, and he will dominate you, even if you have more talent at the start, right? So if you're not picking up the tools in front of you as a man to go get help, to go get counseling, to go talk to somebody who might know more than you or have been further down the journey than you, you're always going to stay stuck. Unfortunately, it's just kind of how it is. It's not just going to happen for you. And I guess, yeah, that whole lightning strike mentality, like, well, someday I'll just wake up and it'll be different. No, what are you doing today to help that change happen? Are you reading a book? Are you filling yourself with more understanding and knowledge and trying to figure it out? Because I know you're hungry. Every man's hungry, right? And a lot of guys are just satisfied with what's in front of them, and they've settled, right? And I think that's one of the most dangerous places a man can be is apathy. Like, well, it just kind of is what it is. I got my retirement. I'm good to go. Is that really helping anybody? I don't know. It's pretty dangerous to me.
It's like punching my mom in the face, even hearing you say that. I'm like, oh my gosh. People become, mediocrity is very salacious. And it's because we're taught mediocrity. You're told, be humble. Don't say that. You don't want to be full of yourself. You're taught these messages. And I'm quick to tell someone, be arrogant. If you want to step out here and say, I'm going to have a top podcast, you had better believe you're going to have a lot of naysayers, a lot of negativity. If you don't believe in you, You have no business doing this.
Yep.
And I'm a firm believer, because for people, first they identify as arrogance, all of a sudden they say it's, you have a can-do attitude. And it's one of those things that, I know is so important for you to develop this sense of, I'm going to figure this out.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Just
Mm,
this deep understanding that whatever I do will be successful. I
it will
will
be.
see it through. I will be successful. That, that is it's not just like an
Mm,
affirmation, but it is a core, for me, I call it faith. Like, you have a belief at the beginning, and I'm going to firmly hold on to this thing with all that I got at the start. And if I don't have that at the start, then I'll waver down the line. But that's the thing that I hold on to, of this knowing. I know that I know that I know this is going to work. This is going to happen. It may not be the way that I thought it would work, but I will see it through. I will see it through to the end. I'm not going to quit at the first obstacle. And that's a place that for me has come through a lot of trials and tribulation, and a lot of taking them on the chin, failing openly in front of other people. I've talked about that on the previous podcasts that I've done. But if you're not vulnerable, like, I don't know, what's the point? What's the point if you're not growing?
No, the big question that, to even leave the viewers with, the listeners with, is this: when was the last time you followed through,
Mm,
even when it didn't work out? If
mm,
there's one pattern that I pick up on many times, many times with persons, especially with dads, I'm very partial to dads here with this. Are you doing the things that you're doing? Or are you completing things where your wife respects you? Are you following through? Because somewhere down inside, when you're not completing things and following through, it ticks away at her.
yep.
And she's kind, and I'm saying she just because it's an ambiguous way. She's kind,
Mhm,
but do you respect yourself enough to follow through on things? How
yep.
can she respect you if you don't respect yourself enough to follow through? Finish it. If it doesn't work out, finish it. That's a rule in our house. See it through. I started off initially before I changed my degree to psychology, I was in art. A really quick story. And I remember just in the studio, if anybody's not done art studio, you have your easel, and you're drawing. And one of my medium was always graphite. And I remember the first day of college, and I'm sitting there the first couple of weeks of college, and I'm drawing, and I'm like, oh, this is not working out. I hated it. I just didn't like the angle. I didn't have my music. I was just off, right? And this is how we feel sometimes in life. You feel off, and you feel like it's beyond your control. You feel like you can't do anything. And I remember my professor came up to me, Colin Ferguson. I won't forget this. And he said, finish it. He said, you have to see it through and let it develop. And I'm like, no, it's stupid. It's ugly. I've been doing this, 10 years before I even got here. You have to say that because I pay you. He said, Vernon, finish it. You have to give it time to develop. I won the art contest that year for that very picture. And it was just such a fascinating thing. When you are in it, you can't see it clearly.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot, but you have to see it through. And sometimes, and you've seen it, we all like a good comeback in college football, right? Like, oh, they're down, 38-0, third quarter. You're like, there's no way they're coming back. Every man who's listening to this is in a comeback season. They have not realized it yet, but you have to see it through. And I'm so adamant about, you got to finish what you start, no matter what it is, finish. Because even if you finish, it's horrible. You don't know who you're going to meet. You don't know what you're going to learn. You're not even sure what lesson you're going to find out. Like, wow, I'm glad I didn't do this years ago or later. But there's lessons there. And I think the big thing about seeing things through, the huge thing for me, even before that, is this: you get points for finishing.
Yep. Yep. That's so good. The proverb that comes to mind is, hope deferred makes the heart grow sick, but a promise fulfilled is a tree of life. And when you promise your wife, you give her hope. Back to your original point. Hey, I'm going to take you on a date night. I'm going to take you out. We're going to go, we're going to have a night away. And then something comes up. Oh, sorry, honey, I got called into work on Saturday. I won't be able to do it. A little bit of her heart. And yes, I understand. She'll be kind to you on the surface, but a little bit of her heart grows sick.
Absolutely.
Can I trust you? Your kids, dad, can we play catch? Can we play catch? Oh yeah, one more phone call. And that leads into another thing. And you're checking stats and you're doing this. And all of a sudden an hour and a half goes by and you're like, oh man, it's time for bed. And I didn't play catch. Or maybe you don't realize it, but your kid does.
Yeah.
Right. So that following through thing has been so important in our home. You do what you say you're going to do.
Absolutely.
And that's integrity, right? It takes a lifetime to build, but it takes a moment to break. That's integrity. as a man? Do you have integrity with yourself? I'm starting this woodworking project. I'm going to do it. Well, I don't have enough money for the tool. But find a way. Figure it out. Find a way.
Figure it out.
Sell one of your pair of shoes. I don't care what it takes. Find a way to follow through. And I promise you'll build some confidence in yourself and you'll be able to lead your kids, your family. I absolutely love that point. Finish what you started. Because again, you don't even know what season you're in. If you're a farmer, think about it this way agriculturally. You got to till the land first. First, you got to buy the land. Then you got to till the land. Then you got to plant. And what happens with those seeds? You can't see under the surface what's happening with those seeds, but a whole world is changing under the surface. And then you see a little sprout and you go, man, is that it? And you pull the thing up and you taproot the thing and it's done. And then they'll never grow again because you weren't patient to know, wait, I plant whatever it is you plant in the fall, or sorry, you harvest in the fall. So you till the land in the winter, you plant in the spring, it grows through the summer, and then you harvest. But there are seasons that happen through it. You might be in a winter season right now. You might be in a spring season. You might be in the summer season where it's growing, but start to look at your life and understand, wait a minute, what season am I in? That should take a lot of pressure off of you. It did for me when I first heard that analogy of a farmer. So hopefully we'll leave the listeners with that. Figure out what season you're in and set in your heart that you will follow through. Amen. Start simple. I'm going to take my kids on a date night once a month, right? I'm going to date my kids. That's a great place to start. Yeah. I'm going to start taking my wife out once a month, even if it's just a picnic in the park with homemade sandwiches. I don't care. I'm going to take her out to show her that I'm pursuing her. Maybe that's where you start and you follow through with it. You build momentum, write it down, and just keep going with it. But I think this is what's so key for us men, is to believe that we can and then see ourselves do it. And now you take a bigger step and now you set a bigger goal, and it's momentum. It's okay. You don't just start off going, I'm going to be Bill Gates, right? Yeah. You start small, So hopefully that's encouraging. Any final words, Vernon, that you want to leave these guys?
I think that's the best send off ever. I love that.
Awesome. All right. Well, God bless you guys. Thanks for listening to Dad Strong, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Hey, thanks for listening to this podcast. And if you like what you just heard, come join us. We're over at BeDadStrong.com. You can sign up for the only community out there of dads who are encouraging each other to stay physically fit and active, to stay emotionally present in their home. So come join us over at BeDadStrong.com.